Well, while you were out, I built an exhaust system. I didn't involve you in it, but I'll give you a rundown on what we have. In the back, there's a 3-inch exhaust all the way out the back that was on the car because it had a turbo. And so that system is okay. I didn't want to go with duals on this V6 because that's 2 mufflers and that's more weight. So rather than do that, I just stuck with the original system from the rear pipe back. That's all good. And it has good hangers on it and everything, so I'm keeping that 3-inch. I took the downpipe and cut the flange off, that is the 3-inch flange, and used it over. And then what I did is I went to good old Summit Racing and I got a Y. This is a 2.5, 2.5 into a 3. And I just set it up here on top of my transmission jack, and I put it up on the tranny jack, leveled it, tacked it in place. Then I've got 4 90-degree mandrel bends and 4 45-degree mandrel bends that I used to fabricate the exhaust. So coming off of this, I had to shorten these just a bit here, and I made 2 90-90 to get forward, and that got around my cross member and up towards the engine. Then I have 2 45s climbing up towards the engine. And I'll give you a little look at that. So going up that way, I got 2 45s, and then that goes to a flange up there. So the idea here is that it mates with that flange directly. Now, I didn't have flanges, so I had to make them. I used a cardboard template, which I pounded out on the exhaust manifold. Then I painted it, scanned it, put it into my CAD, replicated it, cut a gasket with my laser. It matched, so I sent the file over to my fabrication guy and had him plasma cut 3/8-inch flanges for me, and all that goes together. I'm not going to win any awards for my welding quality, but it is complete, solid, with penetration, and I'm not worried about it. On this side over here, the driver's side is a little more complicated. You'll see a bung there for the O2 sensor, but I had to put a notch in the tube to go around the steering shaft. So to do that, I marked it, put it on the mill, used an 1.5-inch milling bit to carve a slot down through the side, used an 1.5-inch piece of tubing and welded it in that spot. And there you go, it gets around the steering shaft. And then back here, because getting it out, I can't get a Y pipe out with that notch in there without hitting the shaft and hanging up on the studs. So what I used here is I have a band clamp that's acting as a union between this pipe and this pipe so that it's easy to get apart. I can just drop this, drop the 1/2 the Y pipe and drop that and come out the side. Otherwise it wasn't going to come out together. So overall, I think it turned out pretty decent. I'm happy with it. Like I said, it has enough weld on it in some places more than others, but it's very functional. I don't see a problem. I am going to be using the 2 forward O2 sensors, not the 2 behind the cats, because as you can see, I don't have any cats. This is a race car. So with that, I'm only going to use the front 2 O2 sensors. There's a bung on top here on the right side, and so these will be easily accessible from the top. So that pretty much takes care of the exhaust system. Now it's on to the serpentine drive. So here is the serpentine drive plan to go around this way. Power steering, alternator, water pump. I have a double-sided, double V-groove belt. These don't come in a lot of sizes. I got one in, it was a little bit short. I didn't have much room here to make an adjustment on the alternator, so I went the next size up. And I've got a gap here now for the alternator where I can pull it out and tension it. So this is my tensioning point right here. So the first thing I've got to do is make up a piece to go from here to here that basically allows me to put this bolt in and have a slot over here to adjust this and pull this up and tension it. So I need to fabricate a little adapter piece with an adjustment on it. And that's what I'm going to do next. Be right back. So just a couple hours later, we have an adapter. So this fits in this bolt here on the original point and goes over the alternator and allows a slot. It's pocketed in the back to go over the alternator, and all the dimensions are the same as the alternator width was. So I can tighten this up, put a bolt through here, pull it tight, and get my tension. And I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll go on to the very next step, which you'll see in a moment. Well, solve one problem, move on to the next one. As you can see, where the belt goes across here, it touches the top of the thermostat housing here just a little bit, and that's not going to work. I could take a little off of there, but it's going to vibrate with this much unsupported area, so it's going to constantly be wanting to rub on that a little bit. And I don't like that a lot. Not very nice. So that needs to be dealt with. I've already moved the temperature sensor over here from where it was underneath the power steering. That's been redone. And so now the next thing is I got to come up with an idler in here. And it just so happens the spring tension idler is a V-groove type that I need. Has a bearing in it. So this is a nice place to start. So what I'd like to do is place that right about here. If I put it here, I can clear. I just need to lift it just a hair above this manifold here. So if I can put that tensioner somewhere in there, that would be awesome. So I'm not going to be able to use spring loaded, but there's two bosses here that are very nicely located. I can triangulate this and make a little bracket that comes up here and bolts that in place. And it needs to be pretty stout, so I'll have to make it out of some fairly thick aluminum, probably 3/8 plate. It's a small piece, not going to add a lot of weight, but that's what I need to do. So to do that, I take a picture of this from straight ahead, and I put a 6-inch ruler laying on here so I have something to go by scale. Bring that into CAD, trace the hole locations and the outside, and then check the scale against the size of my scale. When that's done, I then cut that out on the laser to make a template and see that I have the right dimensions before I move on. Hang on. Template. So I drew that up in CAD, whack it out on the laser, and I can check fit it now. And I can check my hole locations. Look great. This hole location, move it over a little bit and up. It needs to come up a little to get off of the manifold here because it's rubbing. So I brought it up just a little bit. So this looks like this is what I need. So I take this, lay it on a piece of aluminum, hit it with some Dicam, trace around this, and then drill my holes and file and shape it to that shape. Once I have that, I should be able to test fit it. Hang on again. Easier when you can watch someone else do it, and it goes so much faster. All the satisfaction is yours when you get to watch me do it. So I have fabricated the part and I have test fitted it, and we're looking pretty good here. So these bolts will lock this in place. It's out of 3/8 inch thick aluminum. And then the next big step is I have to determine the spacing from the pulley to the front of this piece of metal. So I've got to get out the calipers and the measuring devices and the feeler gauges and everything. And I have to come up with the depth that this pulley has to sit back from there, because I need to make an arbor, an adapter to go through there. And that has to fit tightly in this bearing, have a bolt going through to hold it in place, and get it right in line with my pulleys. So measure, 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 and when I come back, another magic moment, I should have that little spacer there, and we should be just about there. So I'm off. See you in the short. I know I'm making this look so easy. So this bushing fits tightly into this pulley like that. It sits tight and will go in the back with a bolt through it, and that should get my tension where I need it. So that's going in here right now. Push that up. Put my bolt in from the back side. That's where the bolt goes in. And that. And we put a nut on it and tighten it up. And as you can see, we have clearance. Now everything looks real nice. So I'll tighten that up, and that should get this little project out of the way. Okay, I'm waiting for some parts to show up. So it looks like I'll go ahead and post this short video on these couple of things and get back to you when more things come in. The next step is the power steering, getting a reservoir hooked up to this and hoses, AN lines that'll go from the power steering pump to the rack. That's going to be the next thing. Also, I should have parts coming in for the oil pump drive and start working on the bracket for the dry sump oil pump. So that's next. Once that's in, it's just a matter of plumbing. Then we move on to more exciting things. So thank you all. I'll see you on the next one.